You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 93. We are live on a Tuesday. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with me on the show. And for that, thank you very much. Hope you guys have had a blessed week so far. A great 2025 as it is not slowing down. We are already in February. Valentine's Day coming next Friday. So make sure you get your priorities right, ladies and or gentlemen that may be watching the show. Of course, before we get started, y'all, please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you may be watching. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the bell so you never miss a post. The YouTube subs are growing. The social media is back growing as we are back putting out the short form content. Shout out to my editors out there that have been doing some great work for me to help pull it forward. Please like and share the stream wherever you may be watching. We're on Facebook, YouTube. I think we're on Rumble and TikTok as well now. Thank you, Restream, for hooking us up on those outlets. Of course, that QR code is every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL on all social media and podcast platforms. If you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. We've got a packed show this evening with a first-time special guest. Super Bowl 59 picks and predictions. The Saints are looking to hire Kellen Moore, barring any setbacks. Chip Kelly to the Raiders. He leaves Ohio State. Myles Garrett and Cooper Kupp are one is looking for trades. One's team is trying to trade them. And then we've got a great AFC quarterback Super Bowl debate for the end of the show. Joining me on the show tonight, I've got JV from the JV Show, makes amazing content on Instagram, amazing podcast as well. Super happy to have him in tonight. JV, how you doing, brother?
AJ, Adam, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on. It's been in the works for a while, so thanks for having me.
Yes, 100%. And thank you for giving me the name of AJ. I appreciate it. Like I said, Adam Joseph Lewis is the name, but if you want to call me Schmadam, if you want to call me AJ, it all works out. I'm sure I've been called much, much worse as life continues on. But yes, you guys get in the chat, get in the comments, engage with us tonight, especially on social media and here on the live stream as we have a packed show. And JV, we'll go ahead and jump right into it, man, as we're going to start off with our Super Bowl 59 picks and predictions. We got a great matchup. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, a rematch up a couple seasons ago. Jalen Hurts, just the fifth quarterback to go to multiple Super Bowls in his first few seasons as a starter, and breaking the curse, knowing that 19 quarterbacks who initially made it to the Super Bowl never made it back. And hopefully this is his moment to permanently silence the haters because they never seem like they want to go away. We'll talk about some matchups, maybe some X factors, and then give a score prediction, man. So I'll let you take it off the top, JV. Give me some great matchups that you're looking forward to here in Super Bowl 59.
Yeah, so you tossed over the agenda to me, AJ, and immediately I went to Saquon Barkley, obviously, in that Chiefs D-line. I think that's going to be a massive factor in Philly's success. Yep. It pretty much has been all year, right? The offense has ran through Saquon Barkley, but besides that, a few notable guys that I had written down. Obviously, KC, it's going to be Kelsey matched up against any linebackers they got on him. That's huge for Philly's defense. Yep. And then furthermore, I think coaching-wise, I'm interested to see the Kellen Moore versus Spags matchup. Spags is an absolute mastermind, and Kellen Moore, I'm sure we'll get into it, AJ. I don't know how confident I am in his abilities. I'm confident in Jalen Hurts and the rest of the squad, but against a defensive coordinator that's just absolutely unreal and just dismantled the Buffalo Bills, I'm not so certain. So I'd be looking at those coaching matchups, and then obviously you got Reed versus Fangio, but that's kind of given.
Yeah, great takeaways there, man, no doubt. And when you come into this one looking at it for, the Eagles, outside of the Steelers and the Ravens matchups earlier this year, they really haven't seen a defense like this. And then the Chiefs haven't played this caliber of defense all year. You could try to pick through their schedules and their wins and their losses to see if they really have. But when you're talking about literally the first and second best defense in the NFL, you're talking about Vic Fangio, you're talking about Steve Spagnuolo, huge defensive matchup here. And I think the score prediction that we give towards the end of this segment is really going to indicate how this is going to be a major defensive battle, no question. You look at Patrick Mahomes and company, of course, versus that Eagles secondary. How are they going to be able to fare? CJ Gardner-Johnson, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, who's in the defensive rookie of the year conversation, Darius Slay, Zach Bond, Reed Blankenship, and then you're going to have the Kelseys, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy. So it's going to be really major, and that's really more of a, Andy Reid play calling with Patrick Mahomes versus that Vic Fangio defense. And I said it last season when Vic Fangio came into the Eagles, like, this is going to be an elite defense. I was mind blown that the Dolphins and Vic, parted ways mutually or however they wanted to put it, but definitely a big loss for the Dolphins there, no doubt. And even a specific matchup when we're talking about this offense versus this defense, Zach Bond on Travis Kelce, I think is going to be something that we're going to hear the commentators talk about all night. Social media is going to be buzzing about it, and I don't think that it's going to disappoint on the field either. You look at that Chiefs O-line versus that Eagles pass rush as well. You've got Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. Brandon Graham has returned to practice, and it looks like he's going to be able to go in the Super Bowl, which is a major plus for that Eagles defense, and then even Josh Sweat as well. So I think the Chiefs O-line will be able to hold up, but we have seen a little bit of issues at center and at guard, over some courses of the season. But it's not to say that it's a bad O-line. It's not to say that it's been a failure for this team, because clearly they're in this Super Bowl. They're looking for the three-peat, but it is going to be an absolute banger all the way around. And it feels like you could just take every player on each side of the ball and match them up with somebody, and it's going to be an elite matchup, because I do believe we truly have the two best teams in the NFL, as much as people might not want to agree because of the calls with the Chiefs and everything. We've got the two best teams in the NFL right now on the biggest stage, and that's really all we can ask for. You look at that Spags defense as well, and that Chiefs defensive line. Are they able to stop Saquon Barkley a lot? Like you said, we've seen that offense run through Saquon. The Chiefs have not seen a running back like Saquon Barkley. Hell, nobody has in the NFL has seen a running back like Saquon Barkley until they saw him. My Saints in week 3 were very much welcome to him. I think 16 carries, 185 yards. It was disgusting to see, and that was just an indicator to know what Saquon Barkley was going to do over this year. And can that Spags defense match up against A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts' legs and his ability to extend plays, Dallas Goedert, who likes to get involved in this offense as well? And then will Jalen Hurts be able to really combat those Steve Spagnuolo exotic defensive looks like we saw Josh Allen struggle with a little bit? He saves that exotic blitz till the end of the game, and then Josh Allen, whether some people want to drag him for it or not, he made the throw. It was dropped by the tight end. Yes, he had Shakir underneath on the check down, but people aren't keeping that same energy when Jalen Hurts took a safety against the Rams and Kenneth Gainwell was available down low on the check down. When you have a defender coming right at you, a Steve Spagnuolo exotic blitz, I mean, there was 3-4 defenders in Josh's vicinity immediately. I think that's going to be something that Jalen Hurts possibly has to put up with as well. You got any X factors, or you think players or kind of units that are really going to decide what this game could be, or do you feel like you covered it in the matchups there?
No, I'll tell you one guy, AJ, and I was, kind of dissecting the game, and obviously you have your main guys, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. You can go to all of them, but honestly, behind the scenes, I think the one guy that could end up deciding things for Philly is Jake Elliott. And
see people talking
honestly,
about that.
He's had some difficulties throughout the year. Usually he's been a reliable kicker, but in that above 50 range, if he can hit a few field goals, if he can play a perfect game for a kicker that's just hit all your kicks, I think that's a lot bigger than people will give Philly credit for. And especially against the Chiefs, when you can't really leave points on the board. I mean, we saw it with Buffalo. The second they left points on the board, the second they went for it on a few fourth down conversions, didn't work out. Chiefs came back and just absolutely obliterated them, took over the game. For Philly, I think Jake Elliott, if he has a game, if he can hit 3 or 4 field goals when it's necessary, put up 9, 12 points on the board, that's going to be massive, and that's an X factor. I would say kind of a diamond in the rough, I would say. I don't want to pick Mahomes or Hurts because we know about them.
Yeah, for sure. No, great points there. And I wouldn't even think that a kicker would possibly be able to come in and have that type of effect. But it is true. This is going to be a major defensive matchup. We're going to see a battle of kickers in this one. Harrison Butker, Jake Elliott. Are these guys able to take the opportunities that they're given against an elite defensive? I mean, we have the two best defenses in the league, the two best defensive coordinators in the league, which is kind of a given, right? But sometimes it doesn't necessarily play out that way. You might have a roster covering up a mediocre or average coordinator, but no, these guys are front and center, and very good points there on that, no doubt. I think for the Chiefs, it's going to come down to Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. Are they able to kind of stuff the middle for Saquon Barkley? Are they able to really keep him contained? Because if Saquon has another game like he did against the Saints, like he did against the Rams, hell, like he did against everybody this season just about, it's going to be a long night for the Chiefs. Now, weirdly enough, the Chiefs could still possibly win that game because of the magic of Mahomes, and we know Andy Reid and the offense that is carried there in Kansas City. But if Saquon Barkley is not able to be contained by Chris Jones up the middle and George Karlaftis around the edge, whether they're trying to move Saquon out, move the pocket for Jalen Hurts, get Jalen to extend his legs, I think that could be some very vital points there. And when you look on the Eagles side of the ball, of course, again, going back to Saquon Barkley, he's got to have a Saquon Barkley signature game. It already feels like he's had some of his best games of the year, but he needs to pull another one out of the bag. We know that he's just 30 yards away from Terrell Davis's all-time yards in a season, and he's easily going to get that in this game. It would be shocking if Saquon Barkley did not get at least 105, maybe 115 rushing yards in this one. It might not be a vintage game, but he's got to make plays when the Eagles need it because he has been an absolute superstar for this team. Zach Bond as well, a guy that's made plays all season long for that defense, and I don't think it's going to be any different here for Philadelphia. How is he going to be able to cover Travis Kelce? What's it going to look like with the running backs coming out of the backfield? Is, Fangio going to send him on a blitz every now and then to get after Mahomes? I think Zach Bond is really going to be all over the field, and Fangio has to really include him in this game. And then Jalen Hurts extending plays, not just Jalen Hurts himself, but the ability to extend plays. And people can disagree with me all they want on this take right here. Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He just didn't take home the trophy. He only lost by 3. Jalen Hurts made some insane throws. We saw the connections to A.J. Brown, but this team is absolutely different. Having a Saquon, having a Kellen Moore, having a Vic Fangio, but if he's able to pull that all together and extend plays in critical moments, I think that's an absolute X factor here for the Philadelphia Eagles. Give me a score prediction before we get out of here, man, on who you have winning it all. Do the Chiefs three-peat for the first time ever in NFL history, or do the Eagles right the ship? Jalen Hurts maybe gets his respect because it just seems like he's the most hated quarterback in the league for some odd reason. What do you got going down, JV?
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, regardless of if he gets that Super Bowl, it's not going to be respect. They'll find a way around it to hate on him, whatever. That's besides the point. Crazy. I think for me, I'm rooting for Philly, not a Philly fan, but I'm going to go Chiefs 33, Philly 30. Ooh. I just can't bet against Kansas City, man. It's the same thing as what it was with the Pats. I never bet against Brady, even if there's a shot, even if I believe in the underdog.
Right.
I just can't do it. I can't bet against a guy that's clutch and performs every single time he steps on a playoff football field.
Yep. I'm trying to see what the betting odds are. I don't even know. I mean, obviously, I'm sure the Chiefs are favored. Let's see.
Yeah, I would say Kansas City must be favored.
Mm-hmm. I should have pulled this up earlier. I usually do when I predict games. It doesn't seem like it's wanting to get along with me. Oh, wait, here we go. They're a 1.5 point favorite, so this is necessarily a pick 'em, no doubt. Destiny Gamer, appreciate you jumping on. Patrick Mahomes is 3-0 against number 1 defenses in the playoffs, too. That is something I did not know, so it's going to make a lot of people wonder if the Eagles, just because they bring something special to the table defensively, are they actually able to make it happen? He has the Chiefs winning 34-28. You have the Chiefs winning 33-30. It's hard to bet against them, and it looks like you guys see this one being a shootout, but I'm taking the field. Fly, Eagles, fly, baby. I will have them stop in the three-peat. Jalen Hurts will be your Super Bowl MVP. If not, it will be Saquon Barkley. Give me the Eagles with a final score of 24-17. Yes, I think Vic Fangio has an insane game. He has to coach an elite game. He really does. And it's not to say that, anyone on the Chiefs side of the ball doesn't play up to that eliteness that Fangio is going to coach at, because Spags is going to bring it. Andy Reid is going to bring it. But I have got the Philadelphia Eagles winning this one, stopping the three-peat, riding the ship, 24-17. Let's move on to the next topic here, kind of sticking with the Eagles a little bit, but bringing my Saints into the conversation, as they are expected to hire Kellen Moore, barring any major setbacks in the organization. And, a lot of talk about Kellen Moore being here at the Super Bowl. Is he going to be focused? I feel like kind of those conversations creeping in when the Lions fans were pissed because Ben Johnson, they felt like he sold it. He already knew he was taking the Bears job. I'm hoping that's not the case here, but what are you kind of expecting here with Kellen Moore being hired potentially by the Saints? Maybe some pros and cons here for us on the show, man.
Yeah, I talked about Kellen Moore maybe a week or two ago, and I don't think there's a shame, AJ, in being a great coordinator. I mean, you look at Spags with the Chiefs, I don't think there's an issue with knowing your spot in the NFL, especially if you're in a really good spot. Like Cliff Kingsbury this year didn't want to leave Washington for, no offense to you, but the New Orleans Saints, because
it's not taken.
Ultimately, it's probably the worst job to take in football right now. It's just a depleted organization that they have no future hope right now, right? And I mean, unless it's an Andy Reid or some revolutionary coach, I don't think I would support it anyways. But Kellen Moore going, I think it's a false lead. I think Kellen he's good, but he's also had the benefit of the doubt with great offensive talent. I mean, this year was Saquon, Jalen Hurts. Years before that, Justin Herbert. I mean, that offense failed as well. I like Kellen Moore, but to the point he's going to be a head coach, I don't know. It's nice that they could get an offensive mind in there, like you were saying, AJ. That would be a good change-up for sure. But again, I just don't think Kellen Moore is the long-term answer. And I think it's a recipe for disaster. Just like Gerard Mayo was this year with the Pats, we knew he wouldn't do anything because the team just wasn't there. If they had a long-term plan with Mike Vrabel set up, and anybody would have known that was watching, I think it's the same thing with Kellen Moore. I don't know the long-term plan, but I think we're in a similar situation.
Yeah. Wow. Gerard Mayo Patriots comparison. Look, I'm not going to knock you for it, man, because, you'll hear in my spiel here with the segment, it's rough for sure. It's definitely going to be rough. Him being covered up by great offenses, now dealing with the best roster in the NFL, the best defense, the best coordinator. It's definitely remarkable to see what he's been able to do, but it's an absolute dumpster fire in New Orleans. And there's a lot of work to be done. Destiny, I appreciate you being in the chat. Said he's born and raised a Chief fan. After 21 years, it feels good to finally win. Wish I could relate to my team going to 3 straight Super Bowls, going for a three-peat. Didn't a Bears fan troll Caleb Williams acting like Ben Johnson? Then Ben actually took the job a couple weeks later. Yes, you are remembering that correctly. I don't even know how that was able to play out, but yes, that is true for sure. When you talk about some pros here with Kellen Moore coming to the New Orleans Saints, thankfully he's offensive-minded. That checks a box that all Saints fans wanted. He's an excellent play caller, which is very good to see. He's young, plenty of experience. He'll become a head coach in his 8th year coaching in the NFL, and he's outside of the Sean Payton era. He's outside of the building. The only person I wanted as a Saints fan to possibly be in the building and take that job would have been Darren Rizzi, because he was the interim. Players bought in on him. He had the blessing of Alvin Kamara. He had the blessing of plenty of players saying that they wanted him to be the coach. But with Kellen Moore being outside of the Sean Payton era, not knowing really any of those principles, it is going to come down to Mickey Loomis allowing him to really hire his staff, like he said, kind of backtracking on it, saying that now he wants to keep some assistants and possibly coordinators. But every job is open for the Saints right now. Quarterback coach, running back coach, offensive line coach. I want to say linebackers coach as well. We're still looking for an offensive and a defensive coordinator. So it's going to be interesting to see how Kellen Moore really plugs in. But believe it or not, Kellen Moore is a winner. Now, 2019 and 2020 with Dallas are definitely outliers. Jason Garrett's 9th and final season in 2019, they went 8-8, so he did the best that he could there. Dak got injured 5 games into the season in 2020, but then back-to-back 12-win seasons in 2021 and 2022. Justin Herbert got injured in 2023. That was Kellen Moore's only season with them. And now he runs a top 10 offense. I want to say 7th in yards, 8th in points, maybe switch the 2 of those, with the best roster and the best defense in the NFL. And now he's in the Super Bowl in 2024. So it shows you when he's healthy, when he's able to have good players at his disposal, he's elite. And when Philadelphia wins the Super Bowl, Saints fans are going to be gushing at the seams. I mean, seriously, they are going to be begging at Kellen Moore. They are going to be throwing him the checkbook. I'm not saying that's going to be me, because we haven't been able to stay healthy. We've had ridiculous amounts of injuries. We don't have a loaded roster. We have an old defense. We have old players. We have a meddling worst general manager in the league, maybe next to Jerry Jones, however you want to slice that pie. But when you look at some of the cons and kind of some of the pushback that you had as well, JV, minimal talent offensively, a porous offensive line who was 20th in the league in sacks given up with 37. It's not a loaded roster as the past 3 teams that he was with. Worst situation in the league. Can he pull off a 2 to 3 year rebuild? I'm of firm belief that if the next coach that we have, he could be like a Gerard Mayo. He could be like an Antonio Pierce, really be a one and done, because this is a 2 to 3 year rebuild. This is not going to be a Washington Commanders. This is not going to be a Cincinnati Bengals type rebuild. This is not going to be a Houston Texans type of turnaround. You're $50 million over the cap. You have over $100 million in dead cap, or cap hits, from players that are 32 plus. So it's just a lot of negatives here for the Saints that Kellen Moore hasn't seen before. Can he handle no money to spend with cap space? And can he handle Mickey Loomis? I'm not too confident in that. He is going to be a first-year head coach, as you guys saw me post with the short video. So there's a lot of pros that Kellen Moore himself brings in, but there's a lot of cons within the New Orleans Saints organization that makes you wonder, how successful will he really be? Overall, I'm happy to have someone of this ilk willing to coach us, considering how awful the situation is, but I'm 100% proceeding with caution, and I'm really hoping that the Saints aren't being a prisoner of the moment with the 55-point NFC Championship game blowout of a young team in the Washington Commanders that was playing with house money in the first place. Some shocking news here, as we have figured out that Myles Garrett has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. 29 years old, just recorded his 4th straight year with 14-plus sacks, 6-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro, the 4th fastest player to reach 100 sacks. He actually joined Lawrence Taylor as the only player in league history with at least 12 sacks in 5 straight seasons. But this is his 6th losing season out of 8 years in the NFL. He has said many times that he wants his accolades to be paired with team success. The Browns apparently have no intentions of trading him. Couldn't be a stupider remark to come out of the GM's mouth, to be honest with you. And he even said he will not entertain 2 first-rounders for him. That was just recently over this weekend at the Senior Bowl. But he is open to a new deal. I am getting to the point where you'll be able to give your take, JV. I just wanted to kind of set the stage for what Myles Garrett has really done in his career, but it's not all that it's cracked up to be when you're with the Cleveland Browns. He's got 2 years remaining on the 5-year, $125 million extension. That made him the highest paid non-quarterback in 2020. And we've seen the organization kind of pull off a whole New Orleans Saints vibe, restructuring contracts to free up short-term cap, pushing the money into future years. And the Browns have done that with Myles Garrett's contract. So trading him before June 1 would be a hefty dead cap charge of $36 million. After June 1, they would only be 14.8 in dead cap, and they would save about $5 million in the cap in general for the following year. JV, now giving the floor to you after I've set the stage. What are your best suitors, in your opinion, for Myles Garrett now requesting this trade out of Cleveland?
Everyone wants a defensive player of the year or a reigning defensive player of the year. Like, that's no question. But Myles Garrett, I mean, kudos to him. He stuck it out way longer than I would have with a Cleveland organization that's just trash. From what I understand, he wants to leave Cleveland because he wants to contend for a championship. And a lot of the analysts, or maybe the rumors floating around, are teams that aren't necessarily prepared to make a championship or make a Super Bowl run, which is a little confusing to me. To be honest with you, I think he goes to a contending team just because he won't be happy going to a team that's maybe rebuilding or looking to rebuild. My shot in the dark from that perspective is the Pats. I think New England has a lot of hope. I think Drake May's incredible. If they can figure their stuff out, they got Vrabel now. If they can get their D-line and O-line in shape, adding Myles Garrett, that would be big. But as far as contenders go, AJ, written down, I had Detroit, I had Washington, I had Philly. Detroit, when Aiden Hutchinson comes back, that would be an elite duo to pair Washington with Jaden Daniels. They have a franchise quarterback they can rely on. Now they get to build a defense that was, I think, 29th ranked in yards per game on the ground. That's brutal. They could use Myles Garrett. And then Philly, I mean, I would never count out Howie Roseman. He's a genius. And I know they're a stacked team, but how many times have we seen the Philadelphia Eagles maneuver their cap space to bring on yet another star? Barkley, A.J. Brown. All these guys just appear out of nowhere, and it's all due to Howie. And Myles Garrett, I'm pretty sure he said he wanted to go there. So I think those three, as far as contenders, the Pats, the shot in the dark, but I would not count out Philly, especially with what Howie Roseman does. They're not the favorite for me, but again, they're always lurking in these types of discussions.
Yeah. You know, I'd be a fool not to say that the Eagles have a claim at Myles Garrett, but Myles Garrett, Nolan Smith, Zach Bond, that
how much better can it get?
There. Right. How much better can it get? Like, as the number one defense in the league, like, that needs to be blocked. That needs to be conspired away from the Eagles in whatever way possible. But we're not going to knock Howie Roseman as the best GM in the league if he's actually able to do that, you know. Destiny, appreciate you saying that about the Saints. I definitely hope we're able to pull it through as well. Out of respect for the situation, I'm not going to speak on the allegations about the Saints. I don't believe at this point in time that the Saints are going to be sold. There's a lot that was wrapped up in Mr. Benson's will when he passed the team on to his wife, Miss Benson. It was not fake, unfortunately. Question. I will say a very simple there, and it'll be able to really break it down for you. In terms of best suitors for Myles Garrett, you know, he's definitely not going in the division after Saquon's explosion this year and how awful the GM has been lately with picks and contracts. That's not going to happen. But this is also the same guy who said he won't take 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett at 29 years old. So we'll see. Does it take 3? I believe someone could trade 3 first-round picks for Myles Garrett, because when you're in conversations with Lawrence Taylor, when you're the 4th fastest player to 100 sacks, when you've had 4 straight years with 14-plus sacks, I mean, what else can you say about Myles Garrett performing at the highest level? And he said just because of his personal accolades, he is not going to be the guy. He's not going to diminish his hopes and his dreams for winning a championship just because of basically what's built around him isn't built to succeed. Like, he's not going to, you know, settle on that. Definitely got quite a few here, so I'll run through them rather quickly so we're not too held up. But I think there's a lot of teams in the league that would really enjoy seeing Myles Garrett. So you guys stick with me here, and I'd love to hear it in the comments. JV, chime in as well if maybe I throw one to the wall that just doesn't stick for you. Obviously, Washington, they don't have a star edge rusher or really a star defensive player. Of course, they have Clelin Ferrell, Frankie Louvu. They got Wagner, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Dante Fowler, all formidable guys, no doubt. They make a good unit. But you insert Myles Garrett, he's immediately the best player on the defense, and he provides so much. Yep. I would say the Atlanta Falcons, but my whole take with that is if they can't draft a pass rusher in the last 7 years in the first round, now going on 8 years walking into 2025, Takk McKinley was the last defensive player they took in the first round for an edge rusher. So, and they kind of got burned with that as his, career played out. So why would they trade the house for one? Yes, we are talking about a legendary player. Myles Garrett could retire today and be a Hall of Famer without any Super Bowl run, without just, or with rather just a couple of playoff wins, a couple of playoff appearances. But again, 6 losing seasons in 8 years, it's going to make somebody want to leave. Would the Falcons be up for that? I'm not absolutely sure. Lions, of course, is a great one. I kind of pushed back on that at first when I thought about it because of Zadarius Smith, obviously Aiden Hutchinson. They can get out of Zadarius' contract after this year. Him and Hutch would be absolutely insane. The new defensive coordinator coming in after Aaron Glenn leaving would really relieve some pressure off him. As much as I hate to say it, I think the Chiefs could be in play as well. If you're talking about Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, and then Myles Garrett, would be absolutely nuts to see him on that defensive line. The Buffalo Bills might need to make a serious call about this because Myles Garrett would immediately invigorate that defense. There's no true star pass rusher really with Buffalo. Now, I'm not knocking Ed Oliver, AJ Epinesa, Matt Milano, Greg Russo. Again, all of these guys make a great unit, but I believe a lot of the people that I have on this list are how much he could impact the entire unit. I mean, you're talking about raising the floor and, obviously raising the ceiling as well to get into those top 10, maybe even top 7 conversations about best defenses in the NFL. I think the Chargers are also another good look as well because Bosa struggles to stay healthy. He is 29. He's only played 3 full seasons in 9 years, but Khalil Mack is 33 years old, but he is off of a 17-sack season in 2023. We'd like to see some more of Khalil Mack, but again, if you're talking about Bosa, Khalil Mack, and Myles Garrett, I don't think any Chargers fan out there would be upset with you about it. The Broncos have a lot of good young talent as well. Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, Patrick Surtain, of course. You insert Myles Garrett with that veteran leadership, with that coaching in Sean Payton, with that defensive coordination in Denver, and I think it's an absolute home run. The Rams as well, they have a ton of young talent. Braden Fisk and Jared Verse were great picks for the Rams and immediately provided on that O-line. You've got Byron Young and Kobe Turner, who are young players as well. You bring in Myles Garrett as a veteran who is an absolute legend, and he provides so much value in that locker room, let alone on the field. The Packers, too. The Packers are going to be in a lot of conversations to acquire talent this offseason. Now, Lucas Van Ness, Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, Devontae Wyatt, and Quay Walker out of Georgia. We know they're formidable players. We'd like to see more out of them, but Myles Garrett would literally give them an elite edge at the position. Again, veteran leadership for a ton of teams here. I kind of floated the idea of the Niners as well because we know that there's Bosa. We know that there's a lot of first-round picks on that line, but I think if anybody would expect Myles Garrett to go to San Francisco, we would kind of be silly to not think that San Francisco could be in play for it. Just 2 more teams here. The Bears. There's no kind of my shots in the dark, how, like you said, you had your shots in the dark, JV. The Bears, no star pass rusher, pairing Myles Garrett with Montez Sweat, and then the linebackers and Edwards and Edmonds, along with bringing in Ben Johnson, just a real, reignition rather of this team. And then maybe the Bucks could be in play as well. You got Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea, Levante David, who make a solid unit. You insert Myles Garrett. He brings a ton of value. And again, I know that's, half of the NFL, right, would want to play on him. But if you really talk about like outside of the Chiefs and the Niners, there's no real star pass rusher. Of course, the Chargers, like I said, have Khalil Mack as well. But, a lot of those Commanders, Lions, Broncos, Rams could really be in the running for an elite guy like Myles Garrett. Are there any teams that I threw out there that you thought were kind of crazy or, maybe you wanted to add some on now that we got through the segment?
No, I had actually a question for you, AJ, because, you read through 10, 12 teams there. So obviously you were going to list some teams in the AFC. And as far as Cleveland goes, I'm just curious if you think Myles Garrett, if the Browns would want to move him to another AFC team where he might cause problems in the future, or they just move him completely away. Because I mean, they're not idiots. They know Myles Garrett is a massive problem, and ideally you don't want to go up against him at any point at all during the season or the postseason. Moving him to the NFC would be best. But, I mean, Cleveland's not making a postseason run anytime soon. It's not a problem for them, obviously. But I'm curious if you think they'll move him in the AFC or strictly NFC.
I'll think they'll send him anywhere that's not in the division, But again, we're talking about a GM again in Andrew Berry who just, is saying that he wouldn't take he said he wouldn't even entertain 2 first-round picks. So I'm kind of wondering if he's boxing himself in. I just think that they don't want to see him in the same division to play him twice a year and more than likely see him in the playoffs, play him in pivotal games to actually win said division. Of course they would like to see him go to the other conference. That way they don't have too much, interconference play, really kind of struggling with him there. But like you said, the Browns are not going to be in contention anytime soon. So it would be crazy to see him maybe be in the AFC. But I think they're open to, kind of sending him anywhere. Destiny said, I know this is football, but what are your guys' reaction to Luka to the Lakers? We'll pass over that one because we'll probably get a whole segment thrown in here that we'll be able to steer off of. Do you think the Falcons should keep Kirk or start Penix? Well, they're cutting Kirk for sure by March, and then Michael Penix is going to be the QB1, no doubt. Hope Myles Garrett goes anywhere but the Chiefs division. I don't want to deal with him 2 times a year. Hey, I feel you. I feel you for sure, but I think there's a good chance that the Broncos could be in play for him, and obviously some other, divisional teams there as well that could really, play a part. This has been episode 93 of the NFL with AJL. Appreciate you guys jumping into the show tonight. Just a little midterm break here. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with me and JV. Thank you for giving me the nickname AJ also, JV. I might have to dub that one. You got to refer to me as that if you come on the show. It's you're the first one to ever do it, but it's super simple. So I really appreciate it, man. Y'all make sure to like and share the stream wherever you're watching. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the bell, of course, so you never miss a post. That QR code on JV's side of screen will give you every bit of social media and podcast content. Appreciate y'all engaging with the short form clips. Appreciate y'all running up the subs on YouTube and continue to get in the comments as well. Give us some feedback on the content and just overall let us know how you think we're doing on the show. And as always, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, this is the team that you need to be working with. Contact them on social media at Buy and Sell with AJL to get anything going in the world of real estate that you might be interested in. They've got exclusive newsletters they send out every month. Monthly neighborhood market reports. They've even started a real estate meetup to help real estate investors, first-time buyers, maybe first-time sellers, getting into the market. So don't forget to head over to Buy and Sell with AJL. And thank you to them also for being a faithful sponsor of the show. Ohio State's getting cleaned out after winning the Natty, man. They win the CFP title, and we see the offensive coordinator in Chip Kelly now go to the Las Vegas Raiders, making a return to the NFL. He will now be their offensive coordinator. We know that Ohio State lost Al Golden also to, no, maybe it wasn't Al Golden. I can't remember who exactly, but they lost their defensive coordinator to Penn State. What are your thoughts on Chip Kelly returning to the NFL and, of all teams, choosing the Vegas Raiders with Pete Carroll as that new head coach?
So Chip Kelly, his legacy is a little tainted in the NFL. Like, really quickly to break it down, it's very difficult to coach in a hardcore sports town, especially Philly. And when something goes even if it's a minor problem, even if you miss the playoffs 1 year, you have guns pointed at you, right? And Chip Kelly had a few years there. It was just going downhill. Questionable head coaching decisions in Philly. Got booted out. Bad tenure with the Niners. It was a disaster. Went to college football, and I'm sure you can touch on this a little more than me, AJ. You probably have a little more experience. But from what I understood, the offense was pretty good with Ohio State, and Chip Kelly was running that. I think as an offensive coordinator, it's not bad. I mean, I don't think it's earth-shattering. I'm not super excited to see it. There could be a lot worse. Definitely could be a lot better. But I think the important thing for Vegas is you now have Pete Carroll who's going to run the show. There won't be any head coaching or big decision blunders that you might have had with Chip Kelly in the past. And Chip Kelly can just be solely regulated to running and coaching up a really, really good offense. They don't have a ton of talent. I don't even know who their starting quarterback is. Maybe Aiden O'Connell right now. I couldn't tell you. And maybe. But I think Chip Kelly gets a really bad rep because he did coach in Philly. If he coached elsewhere and it was 2 failed seasons, it probably would have just been any other coach. I don't think it's that bad. But again, as long as Pete Carroll's running the operation, I think they're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a little surprised to see a guy like Chip Kelly choose the Raiders out of all positions. Now, of course, these offensive coordination positions were getting filled as time went on. But I think when you talk about kind of a college historian in Chip Kelly with USC comes to, or excuse me, I mean, even, with Chip Kelly as well. But when I was meaning to mention Pete Carroll, excuse me, with USC building that absolute, powerhouse over there, being able to get to success, going over to the Seahawks, able to build that Legion of Boom up as well. Winning the Super Bowl, going back to another one, just a lot of great things that Pete Carroll was able to do. We see him step out a little bit, just become a consultant. Now he's back in the spotlight as a head coach. And then with Chip Kelly as well, he's been coaching in the NFL for 35 years. When you take a look back at, or not coaching in the NFL, excuse me, he's been coaching for 35 years in football, from quarterbacks coach, all the way up to offensive coordinators. He was great at Oregon from 2009 to 2012, lost the Rose Bowl, lost the national championship game with Marcus Mariota. I want to say that might've been, or no, actually that doesn't feel accurate. I think maybe Mariota came a couple seasons after that, won the Rose Bowl in 2011 and won the Fiesta Bowl as well. His time at UCLA was okay, a 35-34 record, 26-26 in the division. So he exited his college career as 81-41. But when you look how he went to Philly in 2013 and 2014, in the last year of Andy Reid, they go 4-12. The offense is 29th in points, 15th in yards. Obviously Michael Vick was helping run the show over there. You've got Jeremy Maclin at receiver, LaShawn McCoy as well. Then you bring Chip Kelly in. They immediately improved to 10-6, fourth in points, second in yards. So they have an elite offense, finished first in the division. But unfortunately, they do lose the wild card. Comes back next year, another 10-6 season, third in points, fifth in yards. So Chip Kelly, and this was with Nick Foles. Then this was with Mark Sanchez. And then you had Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin being your leading receivers, and then LaShawn McCoy kind of being able to play things out as well. Then he gets let go in 2015. It's a 7-9 finish for the Eagles. They're 13th in points, 12th in yards. So definitely kind of a fall off there. But when you look at what he did really in 13 and 14, and maybe the league hadn't switched too much yet, but when you talk about what Chip Kelly's been able to do, I feel like this is exactly what, the Raiders need. This is kind of this new energy, this new juice that Las Vegas really needs, because we saw what he just did with Ohio State, turning them into the unstoppable juggernaut and winning the college football playoffs. I think them losing to Michigan was really the best thing that happened to them. I know it's not a college football segment here, but Chip Kelly was under a lot of heat for that. And so was Ryan Day. They go and they absolutely blow through everybody. I mean, people knew after that Tennessee game, and really after that Oregon game, this is the team to beat. Like, there's no question. And as a Dogs fan, I was like, man, if we meet them in the Natty, we can beat them. No, the hell we couldn't. First of all, we didn't make it there. And second of all, I know that they might have only beat Notre Dame by, I think it was 10-14 points, but that game was not nearly as close as it looked. And a lot of that had to do with Chip Kelly. But I think one thing that you got to look at here is, he can't be stubborn and try to establish the run game when it isn't working. We did see that be a fault of his at Ohio State, because Amir Abdullah and Alexander Madison, the running backs currently with, the two main running backs with Vegas, really won't cut it there. And the prior head coaching experience, again, is really going to be something that I think the Raiders really need that. It's when you talk about a combination of Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, it's kind of like two peas in a pod. It's not going to be perfect exactly, but these guys have proven success and proven results to where you're not going to be scratching your head more times than not as this season plays out for Vegas. Now, whether it's Desmond Ridder, whether it's Aiden O'Connell at the quarterback position, again, a lot of that is going to ride on Chip Kelly being able to either mold them and mentor them into what they need to be. But I don't think that's going to cut it. The Raiders hold the 6th overall pick in this year's draft, so they possibly need to draft a quarterback at 6 if there is one there, or trade up and draft a quarterback, which I do not think is off the table either. So overall, I think it's great for the Raiders that Chip Kelly decided to come here, but what is Chip Kelly really going to be able to work with? That's the big question. We know Devontae Adams, he leaves the Raiders. Now he's with the Jets, and, he's going to be there. Obviously, he's not going to be able, not be able, but he's not going to return, so it's a very talent-stricken offense. Yes, you've got Brock Bowers. Yes, you've got Michael Mayer as well, but you got a lot of question marks for the Chip Kelly offensive unit that are going to be answered as this season comes along. The Rams are seeking to trade Cooper Kupp, not Cooper Kupp actually requesting a trade. Were you shocked by this move, seeing how he just won a Super Bowl with the Rams a few years ago? arguably the best wide receiver season, winning the Triple Crown, winning the Super Bowl MVP. Give me some of your thoughts on this, JV. I was kind of shocked to hear that Cooper Kupp had to come out and say that the team was requesting to trade him, and they were going to be immediately seeking a trade for the superstar wide receiver.
Yeah, that was crazy to me. I mean, when does that ever happen? Like self-reported trade. It was nuts. And maybe it's crazy to say, AJ, I don't know, but was Cooper Kupp's 2021 season an outlier in his career? Like he blew up. He had an incredible year for sure. And Cooper Kupp's very, very talented. But two things can be very true. Like he could have had a really good season, but maybe that's it. Maybe it was just one great season, and availability is the best ability when it comes to the NFL.
Before that season, he was an amazing two, and Goff loved him.
Exactly. I think he was paired with Robert Woods at that time, who would have been
Bobby Trees. Yep, Brandon Cooks.
So they had a pretty solid thing going, and then Cooper Kupp was relied on. Got Matthew Stafford, incredible arm. Okay, that's amazing. But I will say, the second Puka arrived and Cooper Kupp had a few small injuries, it was just takeover. You could see that Puka was the guy Matthew Stafford was going to rely on most, who he was going to bank on most. The Super Bowl run was awesome, but again, I think what killed Cooper Kupp the most were his injuries. Availability is the best ability in the league, and look, I know it's crazy to say this guy had a great season, but that's in 2021. We can't live off the past. That's a few years ago. And now with LA, I mean, they didn't really use him at the end of the year. He had games, he had stretches with 0 receptions, 0 yards. And for LA, it's just unnecessary. You have plenty of receiver talent coming up every single year in the draft, in free agency. And for you to hold on to an older Cooper Kupp, it just doesn't make any sense. But listen, it could make a lot of sense for a few other teams that I had written down here really quickly, AJ, just to tell you.
Go for it, man.
I had the Cincinnati Bengals. I had the Denver Broncos. Dallas Cowboys, I thought it was unlikely, but I thought it'd be cool to put in there. And then the Steelers, I had asterisk. So I'll bring you back to the Bengals. I don't know if they'll go with T. Higgins, but I think Cooper Kupp would be an interesting fit because they have Jamar Chase, the true alpha. Maybe he'll flourish as the number 2. With Denver, I think Sean Payton wouldn't mind getting Bo Nix, another reliable guy. He's got Courtland Sutton, who's kind of emerging now back into that wide receiver 1 role, but they kind of need another guy to slot in there. Dallas, I mean, there's so many things wrong in Dallas, but to get a star like Cooper Kupp, I wouldn't be opposed to it. It'd be interesting to see how he fits into the offense with CeeDee. And then Pittsburgh, I've heard a lot of talk about Cooper Kupp to Pittsburgh. My problem is Russell Wilson prioritizes the fade ball. Mike Tomlin likes throwing it down the sidelines and running the ball. I don't know how well Cooper Kupp's going to fit into the offense. Russell Wilson's not an incredible intermediate thrower. He's not great across the middle. Justin Fields, it's the same story. And that's the issue with Pittsburgh. It's a quarterback problem. It is a mindset problem, I think, with Mike Tomlin. I've talked about it a lot. I think my prime spots would have been Cincy or Denver. And anywhere else that was mentioned, I just felt like they had slot receivers already. And it's tough to slot Cooper Kupp back into the slot when you got a guy. Like the Chargers with Ladd McConkey, I just don't see it happening. You already got a guy you can rely on.
Yeah, great points there. No question about it. Destiny says, do you think if Kirk gets cut, when Kirk gets cut, would the Raiders possibly pick him up? I do believe that they would. 100%. I think the Saints could possibly be in the running for it as well because you're talking about a veteran quarterback. The report did just come out that Kirk actually got hurt in week 10 against the Saints in New Orleans. That was the start of their 4-game skid. Apparently he hurt his shoulder. Falcons are going to take a rap for that, which is crazy for him to admit it, not only to lie about it and keep it a question, but now admit it. And then possibly Kirk taking backlash as well. Yeah, I do think they could bring him in. Dwayne Marcus, that was actually on the show previously as the last guest. He was talking about how the Raiders could bring in Kirk Cousins. They just got Pete Carroll. They've got a ton of cap space to spend. And as much as people were pushing back on it, you can use Max Crosby as a trade partner. You might not want to, but if you're looking to take one player who is so loyal to that team, send him to a contender, do right by him. You know what I mean? But send him somewhere that's doable, and the haul that you could receive for Max Crosby, 100% Destiny. Very good. Very, very good points there. And I think we're going to be able to see that unfold. I'm actually going to have that as a topic on the show in the future about how the Raiders could really make a turnaround I was shocked by this move as well, though, JV, but they do have a ton of young talent, and Cooper Kupp has been injury prone since the Super Bowl win. I hate to say that 2021 was kind of an outlier, but it really was, because when you go and take a look at his stats, rookie year, about 900 yards, 2018, a little under 600 yards. 2019 was when the Saints and the Rams went to the NFC title game. Cooper Kupp was really starting to get his wheels there. 10 touchdowns, 1,161 yards, 134 targets, 94 catches. Falls back a little bit the following year. And then in 2021, you bring in Matthew Stafford. He plays all 17 games, which was actually only the second time in his career that he had played every game in the season. 145 catches, 1,947 yards, 16 touchdowns. He wins the Triple Crown. He wins the Super Bowl MVP. But like you said, JV, how long can you live off of a 2021 stint when you take a look at, there is a Puka Nacua, there is a Demarcus Robinson, there is a Kyron Williams at running back. And, it's not that they've got enough talent, but when you have Puka come in and break the receptions record for a rookie, do what Justin Jefferson did, do what Jamar Chase did, but at a higher level, I know that the Rams don't, as much as they're immediately looking to seek a trade, which still shocks me, I don't think the Rams are too happy about this. But after 2021, in 2022, he played 9 games. And then in 23 and 24, he only played 12 games with a fall off of 1,100 yards, another fall off of a few yards then, and then another fall off of a few yards in 2024. So the stats just keep going down. The injuries just keep piling up. The number of games that he's actually able to be in. I mean, he missed half the season in 2022 after that immediate, pop off in 2021.
Right.
And the Rams had a horrible, horrible Super Bowl hangover. But if we're talking about best suitors, and real quick, the wide receiver room does seem a little bare outside of Puka, and it's not to say that there isn't good talent there, but I think they definitely have to draft a wide receiver this year. If we're talking about best suitors for Cooper Kupp, got quite a few teams here as well, so I'll just throw them at you guys. I think the Bills would be a solid one. Josh Allen, you have Amari Cooper in there, Matt Collins, Khalil Shakir, even Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid as well. I think you can insert Cooper Kupp into a good position in that offense. I know you said not the Chargers, but I'm not depending on, Quentin Johnston entirely too much. Now, I know his sophomore season was definitely better than his rookie season. He kind of cleaned up the drops. He was able to get into the end zone, I think about 800 yards and 8 touchdowns, which is great. But I think you insert Cooper Kupp in that. Now, yes, Ladd is in the slot, so that could throw some confrontation, not in a bad way in there, but just kind of some contradiction rather of the slot. Might not want to see that over in LA. The Broncos, I think, could be in play. You've got Cortland Sutton, you've got Marvin Mims, you put Cooper Kupp in there with a Bo Nix, who's looking to bud in his second year as a sophomore, had a great rookie season, a great coach in Sean Payton who calls the plays. So I think that could be a very solid one. The Ravens are a little iffy for me. Yes, there's Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman feels like he's kind of there one day, gone the next. Isaiah Likely seems like he's the new Mark Andrews in this offense. But I don't think if you're taking a look at Cooper Kupp for a reasonable price, I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, and the Ravens, could definitely use a little more receiving talent over there. I know they have a good bit, but when you talk about the experience of Cooper Kupp, I don't know if they would be able to necessarily turn away from it. The Steelers have a pretty bare wide receiver room as well. I don't think George Pickens will be with this team for much longer. Pratt Freiermuth is solid. I'm still waiting to see that explosion of Darnell Washington, who I felt like was the best tight end in the NFL draft that year. Washington Commanders, I think, would be very clutch as well. Scary Terry, Cooper Kupp, Diami Brown. You've got Zach Ertz, and then even Austin Eckler, who likes to line up in the slot or at least come out of the backfield on some different type of route trees. The Niners could also potentially be in play. Now, I don't think LA wants to see him go in division. That's going to be really hard for people to do after what Saquon Barkley just did. And again, when the Eagles win the Super Bowl, in-division trades with superstars might not ever happen again. Now, I'm not saying Cooper Kupp is a superstar because we're 4 years removed. He is a little injury prone, but that means he's probably going to take less money. He's going to be more open. He claims he's healthy as ever. He's motivated, highly motivated to go to the next team. And, the Rams are even saying that, him and his family are working with the Rams to find the right place to continue competing for championships. And again, he's very motivated and super healthy heading into his next season. Now, he said that, there was no doubt in his mind that he wanted to play in LA in 2025. He thought it was going to start and end with LA, but nonetheless, he's really going to be able to, provide value for the next team that he goes to, no doubt. He did sign that 3-year extension with LA, and now he's in the first year of it. So, the Rams will save about $20 million if they do a post June 1 designation for Cooper Kupp to get traded. If they just cut him straight up, they'll save $15 million in cash and about 7.52 against the salary cap. If they cut him without a post-June 1 designation, they'll absorb $22 million in dead money and about $5 million of his roster bonus. I think they'll be able to somehow get back onto the team. Last few teams here, though, the Falcons, I think, could be in play. I think this would be a more reasonable trade for Atlanta. You've got Drake London. If you bring in Cooper Kupp, who can kind of fit in there in the slot, Kyle Pitts, if he's able to actually remember how to play football again at a high level, and then, of course, Bijan Robinson, who feels like he's lethal anywhere on the field. The Detroit Lions as well. If you're talking about Cooper Kupp with Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, Gibbs obviously out of the backfield is disgusting, and then we've got Sam Laporta as well. And the Packers really do need a star receiver, talking about Green Bay here, because when you look at their depth chart, you've got Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, a little bit of Dontavian Wicks, but it's not a whole lot to really be able to, take a look at. And it's not a star receiver, again, in Cooper Kupp, but he's really able to possibly make some things happen over there. And then the Chicago Bears. Give me 1 second, JB, if you don't mind. Sorry, I hear my puppy raising hell in the next room. I've just recently got a new dog on Friday, and they're both pretty young. I trust them together, but first show with them being out, I'm like, let me make sure that everything's going to be cool. But I can tell he's got to use the restroom, so my mom will be able to help me out. Appreciate her for sure. And then the Chicago Bears, I think it would be solid with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. You got Roma Dunze as well, who they did just bring in. And I think Cooper Kupp could be kind of scary considering what he's saying about his health. Ben Johnson at head coach, I think, could be an absolute home run here to reignite that offense, as they did just only win 5 games last year. And again, the veteran leadership of Cooper Kupp, I don't want to believe that 2021 was an outlier. Maybe it was just a year for the Rams. Maybe it was just a great year for Stafford. They finally pull it together. Cooper Kupp really emerges as that Randy Moss-esque type of receiver. No, I'm not saying he was jumping for jump balls, but when you talk about the type of season that he had, it's absolutely undeniable. Last segment here on the show, which is an absolute great one that JB brought to my attention. He actually posted it on his story, and we figured that we would jump in and make it a topic here on the show. So we've got Joe Burrow. We'll be discussing Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert. Like you said, JV, which AFC quarterback or quarterbacks will end their NFL career without a Super Bowl ring?
Yeah, I already talked about Herbert today, and he's just kind of the one that's left out. It's tough for me to talk about Herbert because I think he's super talented, and I see the vision, but behind 4 guys who could legit be Hall of Fame players if they get their Super Bowls respectively, I already think Lamar and Mahomes are on their way. Josh Allen, if he wins a Super Bowl, and Burrow, if he wins a Super Bowl, they're pretty much on their way to the Hall, right? So to have that in your conference and then the one in your division, it's insane. So Herbert, unfortunately, unless it's with another team, kind of like Stafford left, went from Detroit over to LA, like we just talked about, great team, great talent, all worked out. Kind of an off year for every other NFL team. Cincinnati, they weren't everything, but Joe Burrow was great. As far as the top 4 go, though, AJ, I think out of Lamar, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow, one of them won't win a Super Bowl. And I think that's crazy to say. I do think they all have the potential to, but if I were to bet my money, I'm a Bills fan, I'd go with Josh Allen. I think he's going to win a Super Bowl. And then honestly, I think it might be Joe Burrow on an off year. Lamar would be the one guy I might leave out. Now, I'm not saying he won't, but if there was one player out of those 3 to not win a Super Bowl, which I've already seen him in the playoffs with extremely powerful talent, I might go Lamar. I'm rooting for all 4 of them to win a Super Bowl, but it's tough, especially when they're all in your conference. And if you don't win the division, you're going up against 1, 2, maybe 3 juggernauts.
Sorry, bro. Appreciate you bearing with me there. No, I agree. I agree. When you talk about Justin Herbert, it's you hate to think that a quarterback of his ilk would really not be able to get to the big game. And I think if, Jim Harbaugh doesn't arrive and actually choose that job, I think we're more confident in saying that, but Harbaugh could really be the one to turn it around for him and, just really reinvigorate that team, get them back to contention. Coaching really, really matters. And I didn't understand that for quite a few years when I was first watching the league. And now that you see him in that position, but they have to stay healthy. They have to acquire talent. And more than anything, they have to be able to get the job done in major moments when it seems like they haven't been able to. I mean, we saw the blown playoff lead to the Jaguars, and that looks worse and worse as the seasons go on. You know what I'm saying? So it's tough to see Justin Herbert at this, just at this level of quarterback play, possibly be in conversations of ending their NFL career without a Super Bowl ring. And you just talk about in general how there is so much quarterback competition in the AFC. I mean, it is unreal when you think of all the quarterbacks there, and we're not even throwing CJ Stroud into the mix. I almost wanted to insert him in here, but he's going into his third year. A lot of these guys have great talent, and, it seems like this quarterback play for younger quarterbacks is able to develop year over year, but we'll see as it goes on for sure. Justin Herbert, I can agree with. A lot of people probably won't like this answer, but I think Joe Burrow faces a real jeopardy at not being able to win a Super Bowl in his career. Zach Taylor's kind of questioned year in and year out. We saw what he was able to do going to the Super Bowl, obviously facing off against the Chiefs again in the AFC Championship. Only, two of Mahomes' playoff losses are to Brady, AFC Chip and Super Bowl. That third one is to Joe Burrow. And a lot of people don't seem to remember that. And of course, you can't ride off of the fact that they went to the Super Bowl a few years ago and they have, not necessarily struggled to get back, but the slow starts, watching Joe Burrow hobble into the year. I even said it a couple of seasons, or I think last season. If the Bengals don't take care of Joe Burrow correctly, he is in jeopardy of becoming the next Andrew Luck. He gets beat up behind that offensive line consistently, more times than not. If you're not able to put the actual talent around him, which he does have to be able to help get him there, that's going to be major. If the coaching is not coming through the way that it needs to, which Zach Taylor has been questioned a lot, the slow starts, the injury, the rehab, the health, the repeat, kind of like Andrew Luck said at his press conference when he abruptly retired. I see some similarities in Joe Burrow, and I'm not wishing injury or a bad career on anybody, but I think if we talk about an AFC quarterback between Burrow, Allen, Jackson, and Herbert, like you said, Herbert is definitely in the conversation, but I think Joe Burrow could be in jeopardy of possibly not winning the Super Bowl. Now, I know he's been, but it's been really hard for people to go back. We just saw there's been 19 quarterbacks in the NFL that made a Super Bowl and never went back. Jalen Hurts is the only one to have that debut and actually make it back. Now, what about without a Super Bowl appearance in general? Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, or Justin Herbert?
Yeah, it's Justin Herbert. I mean, he's the number one on my list out of those three. And then I think Josh Allen's at the top. I think he is primed for the appearance. I mean, he's beat Lamar, twice now, I think, in the playoffs.
Yep.
And he's just, every year he's 3 points away from going to a Super Bowl, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, I don't know at what point it's going to happen, but I think fate and I have a feeling it's going to happen at some point. Now, I'm really happy it didn't happen this year, to be honest with you. The Chiefs are a better team than us, and we would have been smacked by a better Philly team on all aspects, maybe other than quarterback. But I think Josh Allen will eventually overcome it. I just wanted to touch on one quick thing, AJ, that you had said.
Go for it, man.
And you compared Joe Burrow to Andrew Luck, but how about Joe Burrow to Dan Marino? Dan Marino went to one Super Bowl, was an incredible talent. Dan Marino is regarded as a top 10 quarterback in league history.
Yep.
Super talented arm. Incredible player, but never got over the hump. Went to one Super Bowl, I believe. Never went back. Never got the opportunity to play in one again. I have a bad feeling that maybe that happens with Joe Burrow. That's a really good point. The defense, it's always been bad. The O-line, they don't protect him. Yeah, he's got Jamar Chase, but that is my least favorite argument. I hate when people say Joe Burrow's got the best receiver in the game. Well, for sure, he's got the best receiver in the game, but is that all you're going to give him? Really?
Right.
Really? Like that's what you're backing it on. He's got one or two really great weapons. T. Higgins is only healthy for half the year. Like he's not reliable whatsoever. And you expect him to do what? I expect him to throw 40 touchdowns.
He's got to have time.
He did do that.
Yep.
Like, come on. It's unbelievable.
Yep. And you look at Joe Burrow this year, 9-8 record, but got in the conversation with Drew Brees with 4,500 plus yards, 40 touchdowns, 70% completion, and Baker Mayfield, ironically, doing it over in Tampa as well. But
Yeah,
I didn't
that's
even think
nice.
of that Dan Marino comparison, and that's a very good point. I would hate to see a player like Joe Burrow not be able to make it back, because I believe Joe, at the end of the day, Joe Burrow has a claim to be the best quarterback out of these four. People can say what they want, but Joe's been the only one to go. Now, Allen's been very close. Lamar should have went last year, but his team decided to put up 10 points in an AFC title game, only gave up 17 and still couldn't make it. So it's it would be crazy to see Joe Burrow not make it back to one. But if we are talking about someone on this list that would go without a Super Bowl appearance, I think we are looking at Justin Herbert as well. I just think when you talk about what Lamar Jackson's been able to do, the fact that Josh Allen has been so close, all of these signs point to Justin Herbert. Now, which order do you think these guys will win the Super Bowl in, between Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert? You might have it at that exact rate there, but give me a 1 through 4 on what order do these guys win the Super Bowl in before we get out of here.
I think I'm rolling Josh Allen next up. I don't see another way it is. And then you're kind of tossing up between Joe Burrow and Lamar. I know I had said Lamar, but you made really good points about Joe Burrow. And the other thing about the Bengals is that franchise is not well known for winning and winning big. So when the opportunity is presented, you kind of got to capitalize. It doesn't come around every single year, every single decade for that matter. So maybe I'd go Lamar, Burrow, and then Herbert at the bottom, or Burrow, Lamar. Those two are interchangeable for me, but I think Herbert just sits at the bottom until things drastically improve.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough with Herbert sitting at the bottom of every single part of this discussion, but it doesn't change the facts of what it's been, and I think just in general, people are now starting to see that slow comparison of, is this just a more talented Phillip Rivers? Because we see the offenses, we see the records, we see the talent that's with him, but just not being able to get over the hump is just something that, it haunts a lot of people. As a Saints fan, I'm so glad that we cashed in on our one opportunity. Exactly. Now, yes, it was 16 years ago, and we almost had another opportunity to go back. I'm not getting into the no call. We all know what happened there. But it's people don't realize how hard it is to not only go to the AFC or NFC chip, but win it, and then win the following game. It's not even like you have to play the best game of your life, because we've seen some average quarterbacks win the Super Bowl. I believe Joe Flacco was one of those, and a lot of people don't like when I make that claim. But where was Joe Flacco after the fact? It's great that he's still in the league. You know what I mean? Excuse me, but there's just it's so hard to make the game, and when you're a quarterback that you could stick on other teams and your talent would help you get there. And of course, you could come out and say, "Oh, well, Adam, you could say that about a lot of other people." Not necessarily. There's not a lot of elevators in the NFL as people really think that they are. Bradley said, imagine the Chiefs three-peat, then trade P. Ryan, Sky Moore, a first and a second for Myles Garrett. I'll tell you right now, that package won't be enough, but that would be crazy to watch the Chiefs three-peat and then go get Myles Garrett. I think if people are talking about protests in the Super Bowl, I can only imagine how the regular season next year could possibly be protested as well. Before we get out of here, though, which order will these guys win the Super Bowl in? I think it goes Lamar Jackson first. I just think he's unlocked something in his repertoire and his character as a quarterback that is, not necessarily unmatched in the league. But I had a conversation with Dwayne Marcus on my previous 2 shows ago when we were talking about NFL awards. Lamar Jackson's 2 prior MVPs didn't feel deserved to me. Now, yes, he threw for 36 touchdowns, but he didn't even throw for 3,500 yards that year. He ran for, 1,200 yards and broke Michael Vick's record, and that was in the first MVP. The second MVP, I couldn't have disagreed more. I felt like it was a weak MVP race, and within the first MVP year, that was a year where Drew Brees had slipped up in that Monday night game against the Panthers, and I think we won like 12-7, 12-9, something like that. Aaron Rodgers was hurt with a shoulder. Russell Wilson was obviously doing Russell Wilson things. So not to necessarily minimize that Lamar had won those MVPs, but like when he wins MVP this year, I believe it will be the most justified one that he's had. So that's why I stick him first on this list. The way that he was able to pass the ball, best season as a passer, I knew Derrick Henry was going to provide for him. And if they can keep Derrick Henry there, if they can keep that defense in unison, I think Lamar can be the first one on this list, no question, too. to be able to go and win it. I'm going to go with Joe Burrow as the second, man, for the sole fact that he has been able to face off against Patrick Mahomes in big moments, especially in the playoffs. He beat them in the first AFC Chip matchup, didn't lose by much in the second one. So we see how Joe Burrow, when he gets the opportunity, when that team is healthy, when his coaching and his support allows him to get there, because he always plays elite. Let's not talk about Joe Burrow like he's not elite. I don't necessarily care for him limping in and limping out of more seasons than not, it's felt like, but I believe Joe Burrow has a great case. Of course, you could flip Josh Allen with there. Obviously, that makes me go Josh Allen third. A really great quarterback. I love what Josh Allen has been able to do. It's a blessing that you have him as a Buffalo Bills fan, because I think he is amazing. And, his talent is not the reason why they haven't been able to win. He left the field with 13 seconds to go winning. His defense sold him in under, literally 13 seconds. His coach is giving up, defensively minded, 35 points per game. Thank you for that stat, by the way, when you talked about it. 35 points per game in all 4 losses to Mahomes. That's not on Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a great quarterback when it matters. Nobody will be able to beat any quarterback in the playoffs. Of course, Mahomes is the subject here with giving up 35 points per game. And then last goes Justin Herbert for all of the previous reasons that we've mentioned. I believe he could possibly win one with the Chargers, but it's going to have to be kind of an odd year. Is a lot of the division injured? Do you catch some breaks in the playoffs? Are you just finally able to make it all pull together? Do you get a trade at the trade deadline to where you've got, an elite offensive star or just a defensive powerhouse player coming in to where it just totally, switches it up, and it's undeniable that your Chargers can get there. I hate to sound like it's kind of excuse making for Herbert and the Chargers, but the facts are the facts. We've seen it for a couple of years, and you and I know we both want to see be able to see Justin Herbert get to those heights, but it's just going to be challenging with him being a Los Angeles Charger. That was episode 93 of the NFL with AJL. I greatly appreciate everybody jumping into the show tonight. JV was an amazing guest. He will definitely be back on the show with us. JV, before we get out of here, please tell people how they can find you, how they can engage with you on all social platforms.
Yeah, AJ, I appreciate you having me. Great show. You guys can find me on Instagram at the JV Show, TikTok at the JV Show. I think I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. Those will come in over the offseason. Stay tuned for a great offseason and enjoy the Super Bowl.
Yes. Thank you so much, man. Before we get out of here, y'all, please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you're watching. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit that bell so you never miss a post. Of course, the QR code, as you always know, is every bit of our social media and podcast content. Appreciate you guys engaging with us on the short form clips. Just having another great start to the year. Yesterday was actually 2 years ago that I relaunched the show, came back out with the NFL with AJL. This is actually my third podcast venture, JV, believe it or not, but we're here to stay. Third time's a charm. This is by far the most consistent, the best production that I've ever put forward for a show, maybe contrary to the belief of you being here with having to step out and ask for assistance with my dog, but we're pretty on point at the NFL with AJL on most times, than not. So at the NFL with AJL on all social media and podcast platforms. If you can't find us, you're simply not looking hard enough. I was AJ. That is JV. I love that nickname, by the way, bro. This was episode 93 of the NFL with AJL. JV will be back on the show with us sooner rather than later. Love y'all, need y'all, and we will see you in the next one.